North Wilkesboro. Speedweek is brought to you by Dodge Cars and Trucks. On the street or off the road, it's the new spirit of Dodge.
Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins and welcome to our last September edition of Speed Week. Now, even though the racing season is nearing an end, there's no shortage of great action to show you from many different venues, both here at home and abroad. And our top story tonight is Formula One. The Grand Prix of Portugal will be a race talked about for many years, not so much because of who won, Gerhard Berger for the first time in '89, but because of what happened during the race. Rick DeBruhl has the story.
It was another pole position for Ayrton Senna and his McLaren in Portugal, his 10th of the season. But when the race started, it was Gerhard Berger's Ferrari that flew past into the lead. But that was only the beginning of Senna's Ferrari problems. Berger led the race for the first 23 laps, and after pit stops, he was back in control by lap 41. But it's one of those pit stops that this race will always be remembered for. Nigel Mansell was coming in, apparently too fast, when he had to slam on the brakes and swerve around his own Ferrari mechanics. He missed his pit and had to put the car in reverse to get back to his team. And once there, he got his tires and went back out. But Formula One does not allow backing up in pit row, and after a few laps, officials decided to disqualify Mansell. But when they showed him the black flag, Mansell claims he didn't see it, and he ignored pit board messages to come in. By now, he was in a battle with Ayrton Senna for second, and on lap 49, at the end of the main straight, he tried to dive under the McLaren. Senna apparently never saw him and cut him off. The result? Both cars were knocked out of the race with suspension problems. Now, for ignoring the black flag, Mansell was penalized $50,000 and given a one-race suspension. But the accident may have cost Senna a lot more, because while Gerhard Berger was winning the race, Senna's teammate Alain Prost finished second. That means he now has a 24-point lead over Senna in the battle for the World Championship. And that all but eliminates any chance the Brazilian might have of repeating as world champion. I'm Rick DeBruhl reporting for Speedweek.
Well, there was yet another questionable incident that occurred, this one on Berger's cool-down lap. The Ferrari in-car camera showed us quite clearly Berger took his helmet off. Now, drivers have apparently been disqualified in other types of racing for doing that, but no action was taken. So who's going to replace Mansell at this Sunday's Spanish Grand Prix? Well, no one. Ferrari will run only one car. Former Ferrari Formula One driver Richie Ginther died of a heart attack this past weekend while visiting his wife's parents in France. Ginther, who competed in 52 Formula One races in the 60s, scored only one victory in Mexico in 1965, but the win was memorable because it was the first for the then 1.5-liter Honda engine. Perhaps his greatest accomplishment was finishing second to Jim Clark in the 1963 World Championship. In recent years, Ginther led a secluded life in Mexico. He was 59 years old. The effects of Hurricane Hugo were being felt in Pennsylvania on Saturday as qualifying for the Bosch Sparkplug Grand Prix IndyCar race was rained out, so time trials were held on race morning. On the front row, the top two in PPG points. Pole sitter Rick Mears with a new track record and unbelievable 174.6 on a one-mile track. And Emerson Fittipaldi with a chance to clinch the national championship. Here's Gary Lee.
At the start, Fittipaldi grabbed the lead, but as the pack moved through turn one, young John Andretti was bumped by his uncle Mario. John spun and collected Pancho Carter and Roberto Guerrero. Didier Tays climbed on the brakes too hard. He also spun. After 18 laps of yellow, the race resumed with Emil and Rick pulling away. But traffic would be a factor today and allow the likes of Teo Fabi, Al Unser, and Danny Sullivan to close up. Fittipaldi used an aggressive driving style to slice through traffic and maintain his lead until the first pit stop on lap 79. Between stops, the race was a shootout between Rick and Emo. With Mears now in command for 10 laps, Fittipaldi closed in and caught Rick behind Michael Andretti and moved low to take back the lead near the halfway point. After the second round of stops, Rick was back in front and the stage was set for the final splash and go on lap 190. But Rick would leave too soon, knocking down a crew member and leaving part of the vent hose attached to the car. Mears would have to make another stop after being black flagged, and that would give Fittipaldi enough of a cushion to make his own splash and go on lap 196, maintain the lead, and secure the victory in the race and the PPG IndyCar Championship. First of all, congratulations. How does it compare to winning the world title?
Thank you very much, Gary. It's been a great emotional moment for me, and since a long time I tried to win the championship, and the PPG IndyCar Championship was great. Was a great team effort. Was a great year for me. It's just fantastic.
You won the world title twice. You retired. You came back. You told me, I think this is the premier racing series in the world. Now you've won it all.
I'm so happy, so pleased, to be able to achieve, and it's a great year, and I'm looking for next season again.
So what will Emo do next year? Well, an announcement is promised within 2 weeks, but many are saying he'll follow his Marlboro sponsorship to Roger Penske Racing, who will field 3 cars in 1990. Knowing they were losing the Marlboro sponsorship, the Patrick team had something to prove at the beginning of this year, and although many thought Penske would dominate the season again, it was Emo and company who got the job done. Here's our salute to the 1989 Kart PPG National Champion.
I dreamed so much since I was a little boy. Fantastic.
Let it go, Emo!
Speedweek is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And by Dodge Cars and Trucks. On the street or off the road, it's the new spirit of Dodge.
Coming up, a 6th win for number 17. And a rich pole day at the Foregrounds.
From Rocky Mountain snow to Florida sun, Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Mine's pushing 250,000 miles.
Quaker State engines run strong and run long.
95,000 miles and no problem.
Quaker State is quality engineered to exceed every single car maker's U.S. requirements for maximum engine protection.
This car's new. I'd be stupid not to use Quaker State.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Even when it's standing still, there's something about a fuel-injected, turbo-powered Dodge Daytona Shelby that'll blow you away.
Got a dirty car to clean? You need Simple Green. Tough grease and dirt are a snap with Simple Green. Just spray it on and wash it off. Simple Green's concentrated formula safely cleans everything in your car. Tires, wheels, tools, carpets, upholstery, windows. Quick and easy. Non-toxic, biodegradable, Simple Green. The only cleaner you'll ever need.
Available at your favorite automotive store. Members of the National Council of Corvette Clubs. To them, there's no car but a vet and no tire but a Goodyear Eagle ZR. We invited them to a showdown. Dunlop D40 M2 against Eagle ZR. Slaloms on wet and dry roads. Hard cornering. Braking. Comfort and noise on the highway. Which tire would they buy now? All 10 pick the Dunlop D40 M2. Dunlop outperforms.
Hurricane Hugo tore through the eastern United States late last week. Charlotte Motor Speedway sustained about $2 million in damage, most of that to the suites located outside of Turn 1. Extra help has been brought in so that everything can be repaired in time for the Winston Cup race a week from Sunday. Windows were also blown out of the press box and the suites at Darlington Raceway, but the grandstands and the track were not damaged. Totally escaping the wrath of the storm was Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, where the Winston Cup teams were gathering for the Goodies 500. Many drivers couldn't get to the speedway in time for qualifying, including Dale Earnhardt. He watched as Jimmy Hensley put his GM Goodwrench Chevrolet on the pole, the team's first since Atlanta in 1987. Dale knew he would be able to start the car up front and was the first to congratulate Jimmy. For the moment, Earnhardt wasn't concerned that Hensley would be the one eligible for the Busch Clash at Daytona in February. Dale was more concerned with winning the race and drawing a step closer to his fourth Winston Cup championship, but a missed setup and tire problems would make it a long afternoon. Super speedway racing is fine, but there's something about a short track. Michael Waltrip's camera mounted on the side of his car showed us how tight it gets out there sometimes. Although passing at Martinsville isn't easy and starting up front is important, Rusty Wallace from 20th position will be able to take the lead from Darrell Waltrip a little more than 100 laps into the race. He led the most circuits and picked up the 5 Winston Cup bonus points before he too had tire and brake problems. There were surprisingly few accidents and caution flags. We could almost feel Harry Gant get squeezed between Dick Trickle and Bobby Hillen, but all three were able to continue. The Hats Off Award goes to Dale Jarrett, who took the less than aerodynamically perfect Hardee's Pontiac to the front and kept it there for 96 laps. Then during a late pit stop, his car was nearly run over by Jim Sauter, who was substituting for Rick Wilson. Nevertheless, Dale went on to finish 5th on the lead lap, his best career finish in a points-paying race. And Ernie Irvin's 6th was also his best ever. It's tough to run 2 abreast here, let alone 3, but that's the way it was when Darrell Waltrip passed Wallace and Earnhardt to take the lead for the final time. In late going, Gant closed on Darrell and might have been able to catch him had it not been for Greg Sachs, who got between him and Waltrip. Then when Michael Waltrip spun with less than 2 laps remaining, the race ended under caution. Darrell won his 3rd straight Goodies 500 and his 6th of the season.
You know, just another sunny Sunday in the South. What a great day. The car just was so good, and I just had a good feeling all the way, you know. I knew the car was fast enough to win the race. We didn't have any trouble. I didn't have to push it. I didn't have to do anything, just wait, and everything came to me today. I was patient in the Lord, and it came to me today.
Here are the points with just 5 more races remaining. Earnhardt, who finished 9th, saw his lead shrink to 75 over Rusty, who was 4th. Mark Martin is all but out of the chase, and despite the win, so is Darrell. Rudd, who finished 8th, climbed to 5th in the Winston Cup points. And so others may still be mathematically in the title chase, but it really has come down to just 2, Dale and Rusty. And our Speedweek phone poll question this week gives you an opportunity to tell us who you would like to see win it. Dial 1-900-990-9000 on your touch-tone phone and then press number 1 to vote for Dale Earnhardt or number 2 for Rusty Wallace. Each call costs 95 cents, and every 40th caller will receive this poster of the new Dodge Viper scheduled for debut late next year. It's supplied to us by the Dodge division of Chrysler Motors, and we'll have the results of our poll on next week's show. Now, while most attention has gone to the battle for the Winston Cup this year, there's a much tighter points race going on in the Busch Grand National Division, which was in action Saturday at Martinsville. And John Kernan has that story.
Tommy Ellis headed into the race, leading Tommy Houston by 12 points in the Busch Grand National title. Took off to the early lead, but 24 laps in, his engine expired. Tommy drops to a 29th place finish and out of the points lead. L.D. Ottinger and Rick Mass staged a fierce battle for the lead a third of the way through the race, but Rick lost a cylinder and dropped out. On lap 118, this multi-car crash in turn 2 slowed the race for the 4th time and took away L.D.'s big lead over Houston. On the last lap, down the backstretch, LD and Houston get together. LD loses it, but gathers it back in. He then spins as he heads into turn 3. Houston wins the race and takes over the points lead.
I bumped him there coming off the corner, and he got him out of shape. He went to the inside. I let him get straight and went to the outside because I figured he would get tiptoe in there, and I wouldn't have a chance. But he overdrove the car getting in there and just turned it around over there in 3 and 4, so we were able to come home pretty easy.
Now, when Tommy dropped out early, he all but conceded the championship, not realizing that his 29th place finish would pay him 76 points. He's only 92 behind Houston with 3 races to go. And Ellis will continue to be a substitute driver on the Winston Cup circuit for at least the next 2 races. That's because David Pearson, the second winningest driver in Winston Cup history, decided earlier this week he didn't want to end a 3-year hiatus.
Pearson climbed behind the wheel of the Wood Brothers Ford for a few practice laps. The team needs a driver for the Charlotte Winston Cup race a week from Sunday because Neil Bonnet is still recovering from injuries. Pearson and the Wood Brothers won 11 straight poles at Charlotte from 1973 to 78 and 3 races. In recent years, David has been overseeing his son Larry's Winston Cup effort and hasn't given serious consideration to driving. But then the call from Glenn Wood.
When he called me, I knew he was serious about it, and he asked me did I want to try it and consider running it, and so it kind of shocked me to start with. I didn't know what to say, and so I told him he would have to think about it. And of course, that afternoon, Eddie called me, and I told him we'd go ahead and try it and come up here and test it anyway and see how the car is and see how it feels, and of course, see how I feel about it and make a decision later.
Well, despite laps at over 170 miles an hour, that would have put him 10th on the starting grid at Charlotte this spring. David, after thinking about it overnight, announced on Wednesday he not only won't drive the car, but has now officially retired from Winston Cup competition.
Despite their success, the Pearson-Wood Brothers combination never won a Winston Cup title. The closest they came was in 1974 when they finished 3rd in points. The final race that year at Ontario Motor Speedway is the subject of this week's Dick Wallen Racing Classic.
With the Winston Cup title already decided, the good old boys gather in California for some sunshine and another day at the races. As the field takes the green, Pearson and the Wood Brothers number 21 darts to the inside in a bid for the lead. But for now, we'll have to settle for 4th behind A.J. Foyt, Bobby Allison, and Cale Yarborough. Lap by, the Silver Fox has pushed his Mercury to the front, but not for long as Allison scoots past on the front stretch. A short time later, a blown tire sends Pearson to the pits. He loses a lap, and it looks like his chances of winning are gone. Suddenly, Buddy Baker slams the wall in turn 4, and Pearson gets back on the lead lap. Before long, he's up to 4th behind Foyt, Allison, and Petty. Foyt pushes too hard, brushing the wall and sending him to the pits for new tires. The rapid pace also proves too much for Petty, whose day ends with a blown engine. On the final lap, Pearson passes Cale but runs out of time as Allison takes the checkered flag. The Silver Fox winds up 2nd on this day, but will return 2 years later to conquer this California superspeedway.
What service department has consistently earned Pontiac and Buick Service Excellence Awards?
Reback in Normal.
What dealer offers a fully computerized automotive and service maintenance system?
Reback in Normal.
Reback! There's always something going on at Reback Pontiac Buick and Normal. And now, get ready for savings that are out of this world on the best selection in town this month. Today!
Reback!
Mr. Smith, the proposal. Better fax it.
In Facsimile Communications, one name stands out for a new level of performance and reliability. And now the highest image quality available. Canon knows that for every kind of business, it's not just how fast you get there, but how well you're received.
Smith's proposal looks great.
Where is Smith?
Canon Fax, communicating quality.
Canon Fax available at Paxton's in downtown Bloomington.
3 races remain in the Formula One season as points leader Alain Prost continues his quest for his 3rd World Driving Championship. See the Grand Prix of Spain, Sunday morning live on ESPN.
The United States Auto Club, the sanctioning body for the Indianapolis 500, is still undecided about rules for the 1990 event. USAC is continuing its discussion with Speedway officials, but a final decision hasn't been made. We hear that the pace car for the 1990 event will be a Chevrolet Beretta convertible. And one driver who will be there trying to make the lineup for the 33rd time is A.J. Foyt. In answer to a Gary Lee question, A.J. gave us an indication of how much longer he may be trying.
Is there any hope at this point of AJ having a Chevrolet next year?
Well, I hope so. You know, like I say, next year probably be possible my last year driving. I hope we can work something out with Chevrolet. We're sure going to try.
One thing AJ did rule out was driving for another car owner next year. There had been rumors that he would be joining Patrick Racing for an Indy-only effort in 1990. The Four Crown Nationals, held annually at Eldora Speedway in Ohio, have traditionally signaled the end of the outdoor USAC racing season in the Midwest.
Midgets, sprints, late models, and championship dirt cars all in one afternoon, and Rich Vogler is the fastest qualifier in all divisions except the stocks, and he's not running in it. This midget division is the only one in which the champion hasn't been crowned yet and won't be until the Turkey Night Grand Prix at Ascot. That's Robbie Flock leading at the start of this 25-lap feature, and Johnny Parsons and Vogler battling for second. 15 laps later, and JP finds himself back on his wheels after a flip with Johnny Heidenreich. Neither driver was injured. Although he had a close call with another car on the last lap, Flock, the 86 Western States midget champ, beat Vogler to the checkered. Russ Gamester is still the points leader. USAC doesn't sanction late models anymore, so this was an open competition affair. Number 14, Larry Moore, rim rode around number 17, Randy Boggs, on the third lap and led until Boggs pinned Larry behind the slower car of Terry Shepard, took the low line, and led the final 14 circuits. In the sprint car feature, these three guys all led at one time. Tony Elliott in yellow, Steve Butler in red, and Jack Hewitt in white. Vogler has already locked up his first sprint title since 1980. He'll finish 9th this afternoon after experiencing a flat tire. Defending sprint car champion Butler, who got his season off to a bad start with 2 crashes while trying to make the Indianapolis 500, passed Hewitt with 4 laps to go and ended his year on a positive note. The Silver Crown Championship dirt race concluded the afternoon. Chuck Gurney's already the champion in this series. Jack Hewitt in number 63 led all 50 laps, holding off number 16 Vogler for the win.
Moms and compact cars like the hot little Dodge Shadow. Somehow they aren't making them like they used to.
What do you have?
Give me 2 pizza puffs, chili dog.
Excuse me. Gus. 1 minute. Sorry.
Give me 2 pizza puffs, a chili dog, a large.
Lord. Gus, I told you, to be hot dog kings, we need lots of Bud Light. Not Bull Blood?
If you want the one light that outshines them all, ask for Bud Light.
Now what do you think? It's beautiful.
Because everything else is just a light.
Hey, what about my pizza puffs?
You can take Jeff Brabham's name out of the hat for any potential full-time IndyCar ride next year. That's because today he re-signed with the Electromotive Nissan team to do another season of IMSA GTP racing. He'll be teaming again with Chip Robinson. As is the case with the Nissans in GTP, the Audis have dominated in the IMSA GTO division this year. Hans Stuck led a 1-2 sweep last weekend at Watkins Glen. And meanwhile, the SCCA Trans Am raced in Canada.
Earlier in the weekend here at Mosport Park, Canadian Ron Fellows was involved in a bad crash during qualifying for a Players' Challenge race, but he's medically cleared and will compete in the Trans Am. Dorsey Schrader can claim the Drivers' Championship and wrap up the Manufacturers' title for Ford with a good finish. He led the field to the green flag for the 50-lap race with Irv Hare alongside and Fellows starting from the 3rd row. John Cleveland suffered multiple fractured ribs in this crash into a tire barrier on lap number 8. At midweek, he was still in intensive care in stable condition, but a full recovery is expected. After Fellows got the lead from Schrader 13 laps from the finish, all he had to do was be careful passing back markers. It was Ron's first Trans Am victory in only his 3rd race of the year. Schrader was 2nd and becomes the first rookie champion since David Hobbs in 1983.
Oh, God, that was a hard one. It really was. You know, we got running hard, and I ran the front tires off the car, and it was really hard. Everybody was running so close today, and I said, I got to win this thing. I just got to get this thing. I'm really glad for Ron. He did a an excellent job up there, you know, and my hat's off to him. He did a real good job, all the guys, and this is just a dream come true.
It was the Jack Roush team's third title in the Trans Am Series in the last 5 years. There were two prestigious late model short track races this past weekend, the ARTGO NASCAR National Short Track Championship and the World Cup 200 sanctioned by All Pro for the first time this year.
All the way to the back of this 37-car field, the fastest qualifier, Tony Raines, who's already won $5,000 and chooses to start at the tail of the field to be eligible for another $5,000 if he can win the race, but he'll last only 2 laps. They had to throw the red flag for this crash, triggered by number 1 Mike Wallace, not because of the seriousness of it, but because the 9 cars involved completely blocked the front stretch. And then a few laps later, a tangle over in turn 2 involved front runners Bobby Dotter and number 98 Jody Ridley, among others. Well, Jody recovered from the crash, and despite a verbal protest by second-place finisher Ted Musgrave, was given the victory, which he called the biggest of his career. This is the National Short Track Championship, and they're not kidding when they say short track. It's only a quarter mile in length. They're starting 32 cars, almost half a racetrack full, and they'll be lapping by the 11th circuit. Early leader Steve Carlson had a flat tire, giving the lead to number 66, Tim Fedewa, the nephew of USAC sprint driver Gary. Tim, who's only 22 and in his rookie year, took home the biggest prize of his young career.
There's a rough road ahead with no end in sight. Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
Quaker State is quality engineered to exceed every single American, European, and Japanese car maker's U.S. requirements for maximum engine protection.
So pistons are protected from friction mile after mile. Valves are protected from wear year in, year out.
That's why Quaker State engines run strong and run long.
Quaker State engines don't know when to quit.
The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Members of the National Council of Corvette Clubs. To them, there's no car but a vet and no tire but a Goodyear Eagle ZR. We invited them to a showdown, Dunlop D40 M2 against Eagle ZR. Slaloms on wet and dry roads. Hard cornering. Braking. Comfort and noise on the highway. Which tire would they buy now? All 10 pick the Dunlop D40 M2. Dunlop outperforms.
Last year, Rusty Wallace sped past Jeff Bodine in a furious finish. This year, look for more short track excitement at the Holly Farms 400. Sunday afternoon at 1 Eastern, live on ESPN.
Well, the biggest crowd in auto racing last weekend wasn't in Estoril, Portugal, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, or Martinsville, Virginia. Where was it? Well, Jerry Garrett has the answer.
I don't care where you went in the world of auto racing last week. If you weren't at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal, we had a bigger crowd than you did. Close to 70,000 people jammed every inch of this place to watch 4 classes of vehicles do battle over a diabolical course. It was full of whoop-de-doos, bone-jarring jumps, and even worse, double jumps. Most of those competing were from Canada. A few came from the northern U.S., but it was the handful of drivers from California that did the best. It didn't take Robbie Gordon long to adapt to foreign terrain. Although he did have a rocky start in his qualifying race, in the main event, he was the first one into turn 1. And when the rest of the pack bottled up behind him, he was off and running to an easy victory. If most of the vehicles in the truck race looked the same, it was no coincidence. Glenn Harris had either sold or rented most of his extra vehicles to other competitors for this one. But the rental cars were still no match for Harris's considerable stadium driving skills. And he motored to consecutive victory number 5 here. There's no doubt the crowds love this type of racing, and if the idea is to get people to watch, it kind of makes you wonder why some people spend millions of dollars to do that asphalt stuff. Reporting from Montreal for Speedweek, this is Jerry Garrett.
Well, that's it for another week. Don't forget to tell us who you would like to see win the Winston Cup Championship, Dale Earnhardt or Rusty Wallace. Every 40th caller receives this new Dodge Viper poster supplied to us by the Dodge Division of Chrysler Motors. We'll see you next week on Speed Week, and at 1 o'clock Sunday for Winston Cup Racing, we leave you with action from Martinsville last week. So long, everyone.
Speed Week has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will, And by Dunlop High Performance Tires. Dunlop outperforms.